Well, good morning, everybody. We have a beautiful day opening up here in Alabama, and we had a great weekend. Hope everybody else did. Today is July 1st, 2024, Monday. But we had rain over the weekend. We had rain Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Beautiful, beautiful rain. We had several inches. Made a big difference. Not a lot of rain, or not a lot of water, quantity-wise, but it really made a big difference in all the plants. Helped everything that was so dry. We haven't had rain in a month, so that really was what a blessing. My tomatoes were big and green and not showing the first sign of anything turning red. And then we got rained on Friday morning, and by Friday evening I had tomatoes turning red. And by Saturday morning I had a lot of tomatoes turning red. We started pulling a couple off and had some delicious sandwiches. And then by Sunday morning, I noticed some of them were trying to split because they've absorbed so much water. So any of the big red ones I pulled off, and they're going to finish ripening them up on the table on the patio. But nothing lost. Just beautiful, beautiful tomatoes. Very thick, meaty ones. The two that we pulled off and ate were a pound apiece. I'm not going to complain about that. Big enough to hold, you can, just barely fit your hand around them. That's just wonderful. But I'll show you what I'm up to today. Just a quick look around. My okra's doing great. We had our first batch of fried okra off that the other night, and let me tell you, fresh from the garden, and 30 minutes later you're eating it. It's wonderful, wonderful. And they're such a beautiful plant just on their own. Besides the fact that they give you food, but move everybody too quick here. They have an absolute beautiful bloom on them. They're in the hibiscus family, so they're just a beautiful plant to begin with, but they're doing great, absolutely great. Let me turn you slowly here. But I don't think anybody enjoyed the rain as much as the orchids did. Oh my, did they enjoy it. Just so much growth. New cane. I see another little cane coming out the back of that one. Another big cane right there in the middle. But really putting out a lot of roots. Really grabbing hold. This is Elsie Denard Blue Heaven. This one had bad roots when I got it as a bag baby and took it out. It literally had no roots, and it's doing so well. Very happy with that. Lots of new root growth. The orchids had a great weekend. We got rain on Friday morning, and the Wednesday before, I had soaked all these guys, let them all sit and soak for 15 to 20 minutes, so they all had a good feed on them. And then Friday morning they got rained on. So they got really, the rain was a blessing, but 4 great things happened because of that. One, my orchids got hydrated extremely well. The baskets, the wood soaked up moisture, the lava rock soaked up moisture, the media, whatever media I'm in, the lava rock, the river rock, all soaked up moisture, the mounds soaked up moisture, the clay pots soaked up moisture, the roots soaked up moisture, everything soaked up moisture, so they're all very well hydrated, and I didn't have to lift a finger. And that's a wonderful thing. And the second great thing that happened was they all got washed off. That's nature's pest control. They all got rinsed off, washed off, and any mealybugs or spider mites or aphids or anything that was even thinking about remotely starting or trying to get started got washed off. And I think I'm pretty sure that's how orchids keep so beautiful in the wild and stay healthy. They only seem to have these issues when they're in our collections, when they're in our grow rooms and our greenhouses and they're inside. Now I grow inside as well. They're outside now, but my plants are only outside from May until end of September, and then they all go inside for the winter. But while they're out here, I let them get rained on, and even when they're inside, I spray them. I spray them down, because that's the best way to keep any of those pests from getting started, is spray your orchids down. So they got watered, they got cleaned off, they got fed again. When I fed them on Wednesday, there was nutrients in the pot. And remember, orchids can only absorb what's actually on their roots or adjacent to the roots, touching the roots. They can't wick, unless there's moisture involved, they can't wick nutrients up from a 1/2 inch away like soil plants can, or 1/4 inch away like soil plants can, with those very fine filamentous type roots. Orchids can only absorb or utilize what's actually on their roots. And that's why you'll notice when I feed mine, I'll notice a growth spurt coming out of a shoot, and then it'll slow down, and then I'll feed them again, and I notice a growth spurt coming out of the root, and it slows down. But when they got that extra rain, it moved nutrients all around in that pot again, and I noticed for the last several days, big growth, big growth. It's not from the water, it's from the nutrients that got pushed around back onto the roots and allowed them to feed again. So they got watered, they got sprayed off and cleaned off, they got fed again, and the fourth great thing that happened was they all got flushed real well too. What excess nutrients they didn't want, excess salts, sodium, etc., anything else that's been deposited in the pots has been rinsed out, flushed out. They had a lot of water run through them, and that's a great thing. They got watered, they got fed, they got washed off, and they got flushed, and I never had to lift a finger. That is great. Now, because of that, and again, I know I harp on calcium all the time. I harp on it, and I harp on it, and I harp on it, but let me explain something again. This is a 1/2 gallon sprayer. I have Orchids wrote on it so I don't make a mistake and use a different container that's been used for spraying weed killer or something like that. It holds a 1/2 gallon. I'll put 1/2 gallon of rainwater in it. I'll put about 8 to 10 drops of Calmag in it. It gives me about 50 to 60 parts per million. And this is about 1/4 of a teaspoon, I guess, per 1/2 gallon. So you're looking at a 1/2 gallon per teaspoon maybe, or per a 1/2 a teaspoon per gallon if you want to start getting into it. I mix it up, pump it up, and I spray and I spray and I spray. Now I sprayed these guys twice this weekend because of all the water that they got sprayed through them. And there's the tomatoes, by the way. And I'm not bragging, but I'm sorry, but that's a really good sized tomato right there. That's a good sized tomato. That's easily a pound tomato. I'm not ashamed of any of those. And that green one which fell off the vine, that will not go to waste. If you've never had fried green tomatoes, well, you're really missing out. You're really missing out. That is a treat. So the Hoyas and everybody are hanging over here getting some filtered light, so they're not getting direct sun. But sorry to move everybody around so much. Anyway, I spray and I sprayed and I sprayed them this weekend with calcium. And one of the reasons is what I just explained. Orchids can only utilize what nutrients are on their roots. And when they get flushed around, calcium does get moved back around onto the roots, yes. But when they get flushed and flushed and flushed and flushed from continuous rain, you need to reapply that. Unless your orchids are hanging on trees or up underneath trees where they're going to get calcium dripped on them, trees continually leach out calcium and other nutrients. Rainwater comes down and flows that down into the orchid roots and around the orchid roots, and that allows them to feed. That's how they feed. But unless your orchids are under a tree, you're keeping them outside under a tree, or they're hanging under a tree, you need to apply calcium to them. And there's no better time than after they get flushed, because at that point, they're probably the lowest. They probably have lost most of their calcium that's left in the pots. If that makes sense. So I've sprayed them, and not just the media. I've sprayed the entire plants. I just soak them and let it run back down onto the media. And I may even give them a little bit of a dose tonight of it. They're not dried out, but they don't ever get too wet in this media. That's one of the reasons I like growing in this type of media, because they never get too wet. They have lots of airflow around them. They just seem to grow and grow and grow and grow. I have a lot of control of them. But I'm going to probably come out and give them some more calcium sometime over the next 48 hours. Probably give them another good spray of calcium. And the reason is I have very warm temperatures. We're going to be back in the 90s, probably hundreds again here by the end of the week. So I've got very, very warm temperatures, a lot of sunshine. They're growing super, super strong. New cane, 2 new canes coming out the side right there on that yellow bird. They're all growing new leaves, new spikes. new roots, new canes, new bulbs, new shoots. And if they get low on calcium when they're in active growth and they're pumping nutrients and pumping nutrients and pumping nutrients, they get what people refer to as black rot. It's basically they die back. Nutrients collect in that growing active tip, whether it's the tip of a leaf that's growing still or the tip of a new shoot, a new cane or a bulb that's growing still. And if it doesn't have enough calcium, they stop growing. The nutrients are still being pumped. It collects in the tip. It gets to be concentrated, and concentrated nutrients, everybody knows what that does. It burns plant tissue, especially young, new plant tissue, and it starts to die back. And it just keeps going, and it just keeps going, and it keeps going. And I'm already seeing a couple of videos here and there on YouTube with black rot issues. Calcium, calcium, calcium. And I know I harp on it. Boy, I'm horrible about it. But it's the one thing that you can do for your orchids that really makes them super strong. Keeps the roots growing, keeps the new shoots growing, keeps the new canes growing. And I want my new growths, all my new shoots and new canes and new bulbs, to all be as big as last year's or bigger than the ones previous. I want my orchids to grow to 100% of their potential. I don't want to end up with smaller, spindlier, littler growths. As much as I love the growth and I love the roots, I still like the blooms, so they're not going to bloom well if they don't grow well. It kind of goes hand in hand. You cannot give them too much calcium, and there is some timing involved with it. But the best thing to do is look at your orchid mix. All the orchid mixes usually that are for sale out there, they almost all work just fine, but you need to read the label. I always match my nitrogen with my calcium. If I have 10% nitrogen in my mix, I want to make sure that I have at least 10% calcium in my mix, if not a little bit more. And even then, when I'm flushing, I would probably add Calmag to my water. I always add Calmag if I'm flushing or just spraying them. The only time they don't get calcium added to them is when it rains on them, like we've had. So I'm going to replenish all that calcium. I want to make sure they have plenty of calcium around them in the roots, on the bulbs, on the canes. And we'll wait for the next rainfall, and we'll repeat that again if it rains again on them, which I'm sure it will. I hope it does. But orchids are super, super, super simple to grow. They need good quality water. You need to check your water. Make sure it has a low TDS, total dissolved solids. For them, they like very clean, pure water. It also allows you, it gives you room to put your nutrients in there. You know, if you only want to feed 150 parts per million of nutrients, you know, maximum, if you're starting out with water, that's 150 parts per million. There's no room in there for nutrients. Does that make sense? And plus, everything that's in tap water is not absorbable. The calcium that's in there is not really absorbable to plants or orchids. It's more absorbable to plants in the soil because they have microbial action that helps break stuff down. Orchids typically don't have that type of microbial action in their pots. Even ones that are established really, really well don't have a lot of it in there. And it takes time for that stuff to break down. So that's why we give them a water-soluble, easily absorbed, readily available calcium supplement like Calmag, which is more similar to what they would get leaching from a tree. So they're in strong growth mode, warm temperatures. Super important. Give your orchids good light, pure water, good nutrients that contain calcium, and then sit back and watch them grow. Spray them off occasionally to keep those pests and stuff from getting started, and they will reward you and thank you. I don't know if I've shown this yet, but my dendrobium did bloom. It's much more pink and purplish on the video screen than it is in real life. It's much deeper red in real life. I believe this is one called Madam Pink, and I've seen this one several times, and it's a beauty, real pretty one, and such a huge cane. And the cane that's growing out, the new growth that's growing out, is equally as big, very large. I'll get my camera girl, I'll do a much better review of everybody and show you all the wonderful growth that's coming, the new roots, the new buds, new spikes, new canes, new shoots. Very happy with the growth. Anyway, thank you all for all the wonderful comments. Thank you so much for all that. Great questions, and the most caring, loving people. There's some great information, great conversations being had down in the comments. Please go down and read the comments. If nothing else, it's very heart-touching, but it's a lot of information. I try to answer all the questions, and one of the questions you might have or been something you're wondering about, maybe down there. It may trigger something. It may help you. So please read those questions, read the comments down down below. And I'm going to go enjoy my day. Probably have a tomato sandwich. I hope everybody enjoys their day. Enjoy the beautiful weather, and give your orchids some calcium, especially if you're getting rained on right now and you're outside. Go replenish that calcium. And if you're inside, go spray your orchids off. Get a pump sprayer and start spraying your orchids off. Do that once or twice a week, and I'm telling you, put a big fan on so they dry off, but there's nothing better for getting rid of spider mites, mealybugs, stuff like that. Nothing better. My garden is covered up with spider mites and mealybugs and aphids and all kinds of little creepy crawlies, and I don't ever have that issue with orchids. Ever have that issue. And it's because they get rained on. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all the kind words, the thoughts, the prayers. It means the world to Jan and I. And we will see you soon. Thank you for watching.